So just a reminder at the beginning of the week, I always like to remind everyone as the week gets started that you can get a free 5-day trial to the trading group. So this session right now is our weekly kind of webinar that we talk about all the setups that I think are in play for the coming week. If you would like to get a little bit of trading in with us on a daily basis, you can get a free trial here at daytradersfx.com. So we'd love to have you, and you can get all those details there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we have as far as news goes. So we saw a little bit of news starting off today, existing home sales, which came out a little tiny bit worse than expected. But so far the home sales reports have all been, a tiny bit better, a tiny bit worse. No major differences there, and we got a little bit of a worse number than we were looking for on the existing home sales. Coming into tomorrow, so this is probably going to be the first time that I've ever seen this happen in my record, in my history of trading, which is going on 12 years or so now. We're having non-farm payroll tomorrow morning, Tuesday, October 22nd. That's weird. I've never seen that before, but I guess these government shutdowns can mess things up a little bit. So anyways, we'll have non-farm payroll tomorrow, which definitely will affect some of the movements today. Remember, sometimes before those really big announcements, things can just go sideways and do not a lot. But we're still going to be ready for all these movements, and we'll see how they go. But tomorrow morning, we'll have our live session. Once again, it's a good time to get a free trial because we'll have our live session tomorrow morning like we always do, but we're going to definitely be focusing a little bit more on non-farm payroll than anything. Also tomorrow, we have core retail sales for Canada, unemployment rate for the U.S., and then we have the Aussie CPI tomorrow evening. So there you have it, guys. There you have it. Excuse me. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this euro dollar. Here was, if you guys remember the chart that I posted here in the notes area last night, was here's the breakout and the setup to watch for on this euro dollar. And I just posted a chart and wanted to kind of give everyone the info of what I was looking for if anyone decided to trade it. I didn't have a specific pending order, but I think the setup was pretty good. Euro dollar's been bumping around just a little bit. The trend line that I had drawn in was just this guy right here, just that one right there. We kind of saw that low of Friday. The market was just kind of hopping up it, and if you remember in the chart, I talked about the fact that we had about 35 or so pips to the weekly pivot from that breakout area. And you can see we had that little breakout, and we had a little pullback of 10 or 12 pips, and then it ended up running 20 pips, and then it pulled back again 15 pips, and it's kind of right back to that general area. I still think, and remember, we're looking to short against this high, so looking to risk maybe 30 pips or so on this run. I still think the euro dollar has a great bearish potential, and I think we're going to at least get down to this weekly pivot, which is around 136.30. So I'm looking for that move into there. Remember, we have a missed daily pivot from Friday as well, so we have two nice little targets that could be dragging this euro down just a few more pips, and honestly, I think we will get there. So euro dollar still looks good on the very short term for a little bit of a continuation down here. I think we're going to get some choppy consolidating probably for a day or so, especially going into non-farm payroll. But I think we should at least get that move down into the weekly pivot. Now, here are a couple of things to look at. I'm going to bring up a screen real quick here. And see how it goes. Yes, Gustavo, I think that the euro dollar will get down to that weekly pivot. It's got 30 pips to go, so I think it'll definitely get down to that weekly pivot before non-farm payroll tomorrow morning. So maybe it could take all the way through the Asian markets this evening or the UK markets tonight, but I think it is a there we go. I think we'll get there, and I don't think it'll be too tough. Now, one thing I always like to look at, as you guys know, is right now the retail positions on euro dollar and pound dollar are pretty short. 75% or so of positions are short right now on euro dollar and pound dollar, which means that there's a decent possibility of these breaks higher. Now, here's one thing to bring up. We have looked at these retail positions quite a bit over the last year or so, and oftentimes when retail traders are super long, the market goes short. When they're super short, the market goes long. And so it's just kind of the opposite of what the retail traders are typically doing, or the majority of the positions. Now, as we remember, the last several times probably, at least several times, we've had situations where retail traders have all been short, and the market's running up, and then the market does go short. It does do what the retail positions are doing when they're overwhelmingly one side or the other. And so I want to bring that up, and I want to remind everybody that we could start to see some interesting things happening at this high. Look what the euro did. We hit 137 about '04. If we go to our weekly chart here, we can see that the entire high of 2013 has been 137.10. Let's make sure we got that right to the exact pip. Okay, so 137.10 exactly is the high of the entire year. We've run up to that pretty nicely, and I think that there's a fantastic chance that we're going to break 137.10. So above 137.10, I'm back long again. On enough of a dip below 137.10, I'm long again as well. But what we have to kind of keep in mind here is we've had some pretty good movements, pretty nice little runs, some consolidation, nice little run here. One thing I always love to look at is number one, our missed weekly pivot for this week, which is probably going to get hit. Not super worried about that. But likewise, we have our missed weekly pivot from, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. We have another missed weekly pivot, and it's all the way down here at 133.15. Now, the euro dollar and the pound dollar pairs, there are always opportunities for exceptions. Let me just say that. Always opportunities for the market to not do what it usually does. But the euro dollar usually doesn't make it much longer than 6 weeks on a missed weekly pivot. And it seems like those missed weekly pivots get hit 5 or 6 weeks into their missed stage. And so I'm starting to get very cautious and very curious that the euro dollar might at least be making a bit of a pullback below 137.10. So here are my levels of interest right now. I think that below 137.10, you can see that we're at 136.70, so there's 40 pips. Below this area, we have an easy chance to get to this weekly pivot. And we have a very reasonable possibility to work our way down into the 134.85, 134.60-ish area, possibly. So that's something that I'm absolutely looking at. Now, this is a perfect. I'm talking about a lot of stuff on this euro dollar because it's really getting kind of super interesting. The euro dollar from this run, this low back here to this high right here, 230 pips, we have a really good opportunity for that to start crossing this 23% fib and working its way down into the 38 and into the 50 and so on and so forth. So let's keep our eyes really peeled here at this 136.50 area. If we get below 136.50, it's obviously going to get us into that weekly pivot, and it's very likely to get us into this 136.15 and potentially 135.90 area. And from 135.90, I think we can start looking for little short-term longs, but it's going to be all about getting below 136.50. But once again, below 137.10, I'm short for the short term. Above 137.10, I'm ready for buying up into that big weekly trend line that we have right here. If we look at this guy, you can see. Well, I think we even need to go to the monthly chart, more of a monthly trend line. You can see that if we get up to that area, that's going to put the market at about 139.00, just somewhere just below the 140 mark. And I think that's a very real possibility of getting there. But we've got to get above 137.10 before that's much of a reality. So for the meantime, let's stay short. Let's target the weekly pivot point. Let's target 136.15, and let's potentially even target 135.90 for those shorts for the moment. Again, above 137.10, we're back long again into 137.80 and 138.00, and then obviously ultimately 139.00. So we have some interesting areas to look at, but I'm sticking with our short on the euro dollar right now. From last night that I posted, and it's just right back to that entry area right now, and I think this is a great opportunity to run for at least 35 pips into that weekly pivot point. Does anybody have any questions on the euro dollar? Questions, comments? Again, the thing that I want to super stress is the fact that retail traders are so short right now on in the euro dollar, and the last couple of times that they've been super short or super long, the market has actually turned. And it's actually run pretty well. So So that's just one thing to keep in mind. They might be onto something finally, these poor retail traders. So that's something I'm looking at on this euro dollar. Okay. Let's skip over to the pound dollar here for a moment. We had a similar, so in the notes area you can see that our pound dollar breakout has actually run a little easier than the euro dollar did. The euro dollar pulled back a little bit and it's coming back down. The pound dollar broke, retraced a little bit, and here it goes nice and easy into that weekly pivot point. So we're going to hit the weekly pivot pretty much without a doubt. I'm not too concerned about that. But what I do think is going to happen potentially is we're going to start running into some pretty serious support down around this area. But before we talk about that too much, we've got a nice little short-term channel right here. We're staying in that. This is a good, we've had a nice run up, and we're getting that consolidation down. So I'm watching for the break of this short-term 24-hour, 48-hour almost channel. And if we start getting back above this, then I'm long again. But I think that there's a couple of interesting things happening on this pound dollar as well. So if we look at the long-term charts, we start looking at this weekly chart here, we can see, let me get rid of some of these trend lines so it's not so crowded and crazy looking. Okay, so if we go to this weekly chart here, let's just get rid of all of that. Okay, so we've seen the pound dollar that's just been on this major run from this double bottom here at about 14800. It's just been going nonstop. But it's coming up into that major resistance. The euro or the pound dollar has a really tough time at this 13600. Excuse me, there's my dyslexia right there. 16300. 16300 is a tough level for the pound dollar. And this is obviously our highs, triple top of 2012, and we're coming right back up to testing that. We got as high as about 162.60-ish area, and then it's just really starting to struggle from there. Now we have some big bullish candles and some great things saying that the trend might be able to continue on. But we've also got this nice little wedge here. We've had this huge run down. This thing has been wedging in here, which is typically a continuation pattern of the previous trend. Now this is 2 years of downward movement, a couple of years consolidation. I'm starting to wonder if we're not going to get the nice bounce off that major resistance 16300 and start working our way back down. Now once again, I'm not getting super bearish just yet on the pound dollar, but I think it's something to watch for. We've got 9 days left this month, 10 days I guess left in this month. We've got a nice hanging man here on the monthly chart. Remember, from our scalping webinar and the chart patterns webinar and so on, that's a nice little bearish candle, and when you see those candles on weekly and monthly charts, they mean quite a bit. They definitely mean a lot more than they do on 1 hour and 4 hour and daily charts and so on. So this is pretty important that we could end up with a hanging man on the monthly chart on the pound dollar. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But likewise, so as we're kind of wedging into all of that, there's tons of resistance here. I could see one kind of, I could very easily see a stop clearing movement and a break or a spike on the pound dollar up to 163.50, 163.75 area, and that would make me even more excited to get short pound dollar below 16400. So I'm starting to look at that as a very real possibility. We almost had a breakout here at this 159.10 and it didn't quite give it to us, and we're back up again, but we're up against some pretty serious resistance. That's one thing that's pretty important. The next thing is the fact that we've got we've still got these missed weekly pivots. We have a missed weekly pivot all the way back here that's just about it's an entire month ago at 158.60. We've got a missed weekly pivot back here at 156.11. We've just got, lots of missed weekly pivot action and reasons for this pound dollar to start on a little bit of a reversal, a little bit of a move back down. So I think there's some interesting things in the works on pound dollar and good reasons to start looking for. Again, I'm not super bearish. Besides our entry that we had right here, which was just that little breakout, and we've started to run very nicely down there, and we're going to reach that weekly pivot, no problem. So very good little move there, some nice pips to be had. And we're going to find some pretty solid, pretty fantastic support right in this general, it's about 160.75, 160.80 area. We've got some trend lines, we've got 200 moving averages. This whole 75.80 area is definitely going to cause a bit of a bounce. Of course, something we want to look at here is Fibonacci. Just go from the low to the high of last week. Nice little run here. It's about 325 pips. We are below the 23% fib, and our 38 is just below 160-100. And then we've got about 160-60 is our 50% fib of this move right here. So I'm really looking for some support around that 50% fib, 200 moving average, trend line area. A lot of things going on right here that lead me to believe we could see a nice little bounce there. Not to not to forget about the fact that we have a kind of an ugly head and shoulders pattern on this 1 hour chart, so that's always something to keep an eye on, and we're just breaking that neckline, and we're below that pretty nicely, so we could see some big movement there. As always, when we're buying on the dips or selling on the rallies, I always like to see some sort of extra confirmation. So when we get here, I want to see a bit of a hammer, some sort of pin bar that can tell us that buyers are stable enough above 160.50 to get this market headed back up into that possibly 163.50 area. David, yeah, so on the pound dollar, I need to kind of refresh my memory on this one. I've been looking at it really specifically on the euro dollar, but pound dollar, missed weekly pivots, they can definitely go a bit, and they can go a little bit longer on pound dollar, but typically on most dollar pairs, on most common, majors, we don't see missed weekly pivots go for more than about 2 months. So more than, 8 weeks or so, and things really have to start making a comeback at that point. They don't have to, but they do seem to quite a bit. And we're about, so this one right here, down here at 158.60, takes us back just about an entire month. So that's about 4 weeks overdue. And then we've got this guy back here that's, 5 weeks. So both euro dollar and pound dollar are kind of in the 5 and 6 week past missed weekly pivot kind of setups, and so I'm starting to get pretty curious and cautious. And it's interesting that both pairs are about 5 or 6 weeks into the missed weekly pivots, number one, and both pairs are coming up against major resistance, number two. So those things put together lead me to believe that something's starting to cook. Something is starting to cook. There we go. Okay, there's some good stats. Thanks, Matt. 6.7 week average since 1990. All right, that's the kind of info we need. Very, very good. Thank you, Matt. So we're right there, guys. We're right at that point where these missed weekly pivots are pretty mature and they're pretty ready to start sucking the market back down to them. So again, as we've talked about many times, these missed weekly pivots can oftentimes give us a really good idea on trend, because they just don't go forever being missed. Now, the exception is yen pairs. There's still missed weekly pivots on pound yen, euro yen, Aussie yen from last year, and that's kind of an exception. But for the most part on these dollar pairs, apparently 6.7 weeks. That's the average there. So that's good to know. Good. Okay, so we're getting right there, guys. We're definitely getting right there. So we're going to start looking for some opportunities to get some really nice entries and hopefully get short here. But again, euro dollar and pound dollar at major levels, and these are great ones to really get those shorts worked out. Okay, just quickly on Aussie dollar, we have a missed weekly pivot once again on the Aussie dollar. I think we do, anyways. It's been so long, I've forgotten. We do. Okay, so we've got a missed weekly pivot back here around 91.30, which is just about a month old as well. A month, 5 weeks, right in that general area. We've got kind of that little bump and run type setup here. We're in a bigger trend. Remember, the Aussie dollar has broken above the high of last month and of last several months, actually. Broke above that 200-day moving average. And it's just kind of stalled out shy of the 50% fib. Now, this 50% fib is from the big rundown back here. It's about a 1,700 pip movement. And it's just starting to sputter out up there. It looks like we might end up with a bit of a shooting star on this daily chart. Definitely some bearish signals on this guy. We've got our missed weekly pivot. So we said this one, the missed weekly pivot was at 91.30, I think, which is, a good 500 pips away. And we've also got this missed weekly pivot right here, and I think this is an easy little just kind of snatch and grab kind of trade here. So this guy's down here just about 96.10. Give or take. So I think this is going to be a good opportunity. If we break below the low that has been set for the week so far, which is about 96.40, let's look for the opportunities to break below that. Remember how we talked about when we break like 60 levels or 40 levels, that kind of gets us out of that 50 zone, because the 50s, you know, the zeros and the 50s, it's always give or take 5 or 10 pips. But when we start to break above and below that 5 or 10 pip buffer of those 0 and 50 levels, that's where things get pretty interesting. And this is this low right here is just 10 pips below the 9650 area. So we break below that, and I think we've got a really good opportunity for, once again, just a quick kind of easy 30 pip trade into this weekly pivot. Down into that 9600 area. So let's watch for opportunities to get short there at the break of 9640. I think that'll be just a nice, good 30 pip trade, nothing too crazy. You can see here that we've got a lot of long wicks at this high, this 9678. It's just about 9680. And again, we have that daily shooting star right there. So if we start breaking above that, then we're going to see runs, you know, at least into that 50% fib, which is only 30 plus pips, but we could be headed into that 61.8, some of these other big resistance levels that are now 200 and 250 pips away. So let's keep an eye on the breakout of this short-term channel here. So 9680 high, 9640 low. It's just a little 40 pip channel, and we should have an easy 30 pip run either direction that this ends up breaking out of the channel. And then we could end up with some much longer term movements, because again, we have this missed weekly pivot here. There's a ton of resistance, or excuse me, a ton of support down here. So it's going to be pretty tough for this Aussie to just start heading lower. And I don't think it's just going to start heading lower, but we do have a missed weekly pivot back there around 9130 that is calling the market, and it's going to get back down there at some point. So we've got to keep an eye on that. But fundamentally speaking, there's no huge reason that the dollar should start rallying. So let's not be super dollar bullish just yet, but let's look for some corrections. Let's look for some corrective movements back down, and kind of, you know, see how things start to go from there. Yes, David. Yep, exactly. Yep, nice little 4-hour setup on that one. So again, just short-term channel, 9680, 9640 Aussie dollar. Yen pairs are getting kind of interesting. Aussie yen is just giving us kind of a quick little look here. We've got just a short-term channel that I'm looking at from last week on the Aussie yen. I think these yen pairs are going to, I think they definitely have some more potential to head higher. We've got some missed weekly pivots here on this Aussie yen. One thing we are seeing though, 4-hour chart, we've got some nice little shooting stars, a couple of reversal candles there. Nothing too crazy looking on this daily chart. A little spinning top right here, a couple of spinning tops, which can definitely mean, you know, some indecision. This could be a time for things to start turning and heading back down. We don't know yet, but the one thing that I know we need to be watching on this Aussie yen is you can see this little short-term channel from last week is giving us a possibility to start running towards the movement down in the direction of that missed weekly pivot. So the missed weekly pivot right now from current market price is just over 50 pips on Aussie yen. And I think we have a good chance of reaching that sooner than later. I'm watching just the little support that we've created here, about 94.70. And I think if we break that 94.70, number one, that gets us out of this short-term week-long channel, and that could easily take us just to the next level here. Just a quick 20 pip movement into that 94, almost 50 area, about 94.50. But we start breaking below that, and then we've got that nice run into about 94.20. And that's where I think this gets interesting. So a break of 94.70 hopefully will be able to take us all the way down to that 94.20. So that's what I'm looking for on the Aussie yen for the moment. Just a little bit of retracement, a little bit of pullback. So I'm kind of looking at a similar setup on all these yen pairs. Pound yen is doing this a similar type situation here. It's been running up this channel for a couple of weeks. I'm not as excited to get short on the pound yen, but I think it does have some good potential down into that weekly pivot. Once again, some missed levels there. There's some little trend lines to be drawn and some breakouts either direction, but I'm just kind of sitting tight on the pound yen for the moment. If you don't get short on pound yen into the move of that missed weekly pivot right there. It could be a good opportunity to get long as well. So we've had this interesting trend where we run up, we pull back quite a bit, run up, pull back quite a bit, run up. So, you know, as far as 160 being the big resistance level on the pound yen, I think it's very possible. There was a huge double top right there, and we're getting back close to that once again. So I still like shorting against that level, but we're still, 170 or so pips away from that. So we got to keep our eye on that. But let's just watch these short-term channels. A move down into this weekly pivot is going to put us back into contact with the support of this ascending channel and could give us a nice opportunity for that bounce. So that's about 15800, 157.85 area. Right in that general area should be some pretty good support, and that might be a great opportunity to start getting long pound yen. So again, this one, you know, I think we have much more clear-cut movements on euro dollar, pound dollar, and Aussie dollar, but pound yen, and even Aussie yen, but pound yen I think we need to wait just a little bit for and make sure that we've got some good solid reversal patterns and kind of, you know, that we're not just trying to jump in on that dip just yet. So I think we're going to need some reversal patterns to get long once again, targeting that, potentially targeting 160, the big highs there, but I don't know if we're going to get all the way back up there, but we should be able to get a good bounce around 15800 or just below 15800. So we'll keep an eye on that. Euro yen, similar type situation, just a slight missed weekly pivot. It's just been running up this area. I don't love euro yen most of the time. I think it's kind of a son of a gun to trade. We've got a little sub trend within the larger trend here, and I'm just keeping an eye on this. The euro yen's working on a bit of a double top here at 134.95 ish. We've had a high there of about 134.36, which came just about 60 pips or so from that high. I'm just watching. I don't have any specific entry, but I'm going to watch and see if this channel holds or if it makes a break, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm not doing too much on euro yen just yet. Nice little channel in gold for any gold traders. Watch for a break of that Friday low. Again, nice little run. There's 85 pips or so into that missed weekly pivot and into that 200 moving average. And this is going to be a ton of support right here. So be ready for that break short of about 1311.30 area. And we're going to be targeting about 1303. 1304 right in that general area, but there's a nice little move of about 80 pips on gold, so just keep an eye on that, be ready for that movement. And the rest of these guys, I'm just keeping my eyes and ears open. Something to be said about dollar CAD here. We've got some pretty good support down here around this 102.70 area, and we kind of keep coming shy of that. We still have that nice missed weekly pivot on the dollar CAD back here at 104.40. And I think there's a nice opportunity to start trading back towards that. And again, that's towards dollar strength, which I'm a little tiny bit leery of doing, but I think there's some good possibilities there. So these are just a few honorable mentions that I'm not really ready to jump into yet, but I'm keeping my eye on. Euro pound is starting to make a little bit of a pattern here. You can see that we had a pretty nice couple of months of downtrend. We broke some pretty important levels, and now it's consolidating here, and it looks like there might be a continuation up from the last couple of weeks. So as we kind of continue through this area, I'm going to watch for a break of that trend line and for opportunities to start getting long on euro pound, but again, not just yet. Lots of chop Euro Aussie, lots of chop pound Swiss francs, and pairs we look at, lots of chop on Euro New Zealand, but I still think this is a great opportunity. We have some really nice targets up there that need to get hit, so we're going to keep an eye on this, but these are ones that we're not really ready to do too much with just yet. So honestly, I think our best opportunities for the moment are going to be Euro Dollar, moving into that 136.15, being short below 137.10. And being long above 137.10. If it breaks above that, let's get into some major buying movements. Pound dollar again being short into 16100 at least into 16100, and looking for potential longs just above 160.50, and we're going to be looking for that. But we're already short, and we're holding on to our shorts, and we'll see how this pound dollar ends up doing over the next couple of hours. But nice little moves there. Aussie dollar channel, watch this 96.80 and 96.40. Great little level, great little level. Keep an eye on that. And Aussie yen, let's watch this, 94.70, and a break of that into 94.50 and ultimately into 94.20. There should be some pretty good little shorts on the Aussie yen in the works, so let's keep an eye on that movement. Okay, so quickly, Euro or Aussie New Zealand is not a pair that I trade too often, but I will happily look over it and see if there's anything that I can quickly pick out, because oftentimes it can be a really good mover, but I just don't trade it too often. So a couple of things to look at here. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, well, I would say immediately the biggest thing that pops out at me is a very nice solid double bottom, so definitely something to keep an eye on there. And that's a couple hundred pips away, so that double bottom's pretty good. One thing that I do love to look at is I would start looking at fib levels like on this weekly chart. We have a pretty nice channel there, and whenever we have a double bottom, this is something I like to keep an eye on. You can see that at least on this weekly situation, we've crossed that 23.6% fib, which is at around 115. 47, about 115, well, 115.50 is about where that 23% fib is, and our 38 is up at 117.65. So there is huge upward potential of 350 pips probably into that 38% fib from current market price. But there's a bit of a long-term stop that we're going to have to use on something like this, but I think that is overall, on the longest term time frames, my sentiment on this would definitely lean towards the bullish side. But again, this is just a quick analysis, and it's not a pair that I trade super often. So that's kind of what I have to say about that one. So look to buy on dips is low. If this thing drops 100 pips, buy the heck out of it. It's going to be a long-term trade, but I think there's some major upside potential to that. So, questions, comments, guys, send them on over. I'm happy to discuss any pair. If I missed anything that anyone wanted to look at, just say the word. I'm going to update notes real quick and put some trade ideas in the notes area for everyone to see as just a reminder of some of the things we've discussed today. And again, questions, comments, send them right over, and I'm going to pause the screen and audio for just a moment. 1 second on that pound Aussie. We'll get that going just one moment.